would you like to stop building unicorns and start building camels? Saji Matapat will tell us why that is so important in terms of growing and building a business that is successful. And he's a global business strategist and best-selling author. So, Saji, tell us, what do you mean by that? Because everybody wants to build a unicorn. Everybody wants to create something that will sell hundreds of millions of dollars. Why would you say people shouldn't focus on building unicorns and start building camels? And what does that even mean?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Lily, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on your platform. I'm truly an admirer of your platform, and I really appreciate giving me the contrarian perspective. Let me put it this way: I used to be that plastic surgeon. I used to be the person making lipsticking the pig or whatever the stuff. Used to do it, and especially through my financial engineering for 30 years. I did what Wall Street want to hear, especially through the Big Four consulting or in that kind of world. That's a world I used to live in. So with everything happening around us, with the geopolitical environment, we are in, and again from 2008 onwards, I saw the significant shift happening in our own world. Especially you may remember in 2008, the whole economy was tanking in front of us, and subsequently with the COVID also, we have seen my fair share of that. Let me think, look behind what the hell am I doing with my professional life, personal life, and it let me think from a different perspective. I realized the way we are doing the architected the business in this part of the world, and especially our entrepreneurial the culture around in the Silicon Valley or in the valley of the world, we are chasing the unicorns. We are looking for the quarterly, in the Wall Street perspective, quarterly exits. We are looking before even entering. We are looking for an exit. Rather than building the foundation, we're building on a shaky foundation. So from that perspective, again, I come out with some sort of my own methodology. Especially in the 2008, I had the opportunity to look at, spend a little bit time in the you may know about Cambodia, the killing field, the Pol Pot. I spent about a little bit time as part of my executive leadership program from the bottom of the pyramid perspective. From that perspective, I realized the way we are looking at, especially with the China coming up with about $83 trillion they're pumping into their state-owned enterprises, their own enterprises, versus we are chasing after some of the unicorns and that kind of. From that perspective, I come out with some sort of five-step unicorn method, formula, or camel formula, to get out of the unicorn mentality. So, do you want me to get into the details of that process, or
Yes, tell us more. What do you specifically mean about building camels? What does that look like for and I'm not talking governments, I'm talking only regular entrepreneurs. What can they do in terms of building their business and not chase a unicorn?
Let me give a traditional entrepreneurial culture in this part of the world. The Silicon Valley is famous for, and some Wall Street area. And in between, most of the venture capitalist fund, most of the funds in the chasing pretty much 5 counties in the US, in very niche areas. Most of the other entrepreneurs, traditional entrepreneurs, they don't get the money. So many of those people are chasing for, especially in the Silicon Valley, they're building their pitch deck, targeting the venture capitalist or the short-term kind of money. So versus I'm proposing them, look at the way that China is developing. So if you can't explain your pitch deck to your grandmother, She can't explain what the hell is in your PowerPoint, in a fancy PowerPoint presentation to convince your grandmother. You're failing. Your unicorn won't succeed. You need to build for the camel which can last the weather, all kind of, so the tsunami, all kind of desert environment, and all the violent storm coming ahead of us, with especially in the today's geopolitical world. Another aspect is about you need to look for. In this part of in our culture is more of especially if you look at the Silicon Valley culture or in general, we are more hunters. We are looking for our next kill, next exit, the way when we can sell the company. Versus we need to look at, especially in the Chinese way, what they're building. When they're building, they're building as like a farmer. They're building their objective is 2049, the centenarial, the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. That is their objective. They're building their corporation from a century perspective, from a dynastical perspective, versus we are building from a quarterly perspective. Then another aspect you need to look at, when you're looking for investors, you need to look for a patient capital. We are looking for, you need to be like an Amish, rather than looking for rather than looking for a hookup with the prostitutes. Especially the venture capital is very, very short term, mentality people. We need to avoid that kind of stuff. And we need to look at from the perspective of, rather than collecting, we need to start building rather than building for the yes bosses. When you're building the team, you need to bring multiple perspectives. You need to bring the perspectives which you don't agree with you. That is the only way you can build a camel. Camel is not something, it's an ugly animal. It's like the unicorns, it's the fancy one. Yes, it looks nice, but it won't last for when it in the desert or the storms, and versus in the camel, it can sustain for generations. So when you're building, build a camel, build on a solid foundation, build on a dynastical one, rather than looking for a next exit or the quarterly result or that perspective. Don't build the unicorns.
Thank you. Tell us how an entrepreneur would stop building unicorns and start building a camel. Let's say from a practical perspective, what would an entrepreneur do differently?
The way you need to approach is, again, rather than looking for a quick solution, rather than you need to look at a major problem to solve for your customers. And need to be explainable to your grandmother. And when you're, and again, I understand, like the culture in this part of the world, at least, 75% of the venture funding is going on. Anything if you're adding to the AI, that is where it's getting funded. But rest of the, that easy money, easy comes, easy goes. Especially when you hit with some major, some turbulences, all those money flies away. So when you're building, you make sure that you address a solid customer problem. You need to address, that need to be in, rather than preparing a pitch deck to your venture capitalist, the same pitch deck, if you need to make sure that you can convince your grandmother, she can understand your solving the real problem. And you need to look from rather than another way of looking at it is when you're building something, rather than, I understand in the Silicon Valley perspective is, move fast, break things, that kind of mentality. You're not in for a demolition derby business. You're in it for, if you break something, especially the trust is the foundation of capitalism. If you break the trust, it is not something easy to fix. Your reputation, your culture, it should be on the line. You need to look for rather than looking for next skill, you need to be a farmer. You need to take care of the soil. You need to look for from the perspective of a long-term, dynastical perspective, rather than if you're looking for a next skill, at the end of the day, you will be left with the skeletons from the past.
Thank you. But tell us some practical steps that entrepreneurs can leverage so they can build a camel and not a unicorn. Give us like some examples.
The building, the example, if you may look at it, you need to look, again, look at our own history. I may be giving a bigger, I understand, the audiences are multiple, like perspective audiences, in this group. So from that perspective, you need to look at, when you're building, let's look at the bigger picture, how this country, the capitalism in this part of the world was built by. If you take a look at it, the FDR and the Theodore Roosevelt, he is the person who laid the foundations of this capitalistic country. Later on, like the Theodore Roosevelt, FDR built on the foundations of what Theodore Roosevelt built. You need to look from the perspective of when you're going through the challenges, that is when you realize you identify the opportunities. Again, let's take a look at it even in this country itself. There is a significant opportunity, especially in the small and the business scale, especially with all the tariff wars happening. There is a significant opportunity in bringing the hardcore manufacturing, whether it is on the bring the manufacturing from the perspective of like the developing your agricultural solution, like agri related issues, or in an engineering solution. You need to look for the hardcore issues we can address in our own environment, rather than looking for the fluff. Yeah, the opportunities are everywhere. Yeah.
Thank you. Tell us. Did you already apply this concept of stop building unicorns and start building camels in companies that you've managed or companies that you've helped have a shift? Or is this a brand new concept you came up with?
This is something I'm trying to implement in my own perspective. Let me put it this way. This may not be the first, especially since last 3-4 years, I'm putting most of my own hard-earned savings on some of those. For example, I'm from the Southeast Asia, the state called, like the India, southeast part of, western part of India, state called Kerala, the gods of God's own country. That's around, around 5,000-year-old civilization in that. There are about, the state, there are about 800 different gods in that, at least in that, like the cultural celebration going on. And there's I've been to around 18 countries with my camera. There is no other beautiful place than that part of the world. This some of these festivities, especially festivity last between from October through April, May, June time zone. There is even in that part of the world, it's very little understood. What I did is, from my own way for testing some of these theorems, I put my own hard-on over $500,000 I poured into building the core content material. Spending, I took a sabbatical also. I spent a little bit of time in that part of the world, gathering all the amazing, in short, I gathered a couple of thousand hours worth of content, which is very hard to, commercially you can't get that kind of content because it's many of those cultural, ritualistic aspect. I'm sitting on a huge repository of content, but translating that content into the more than the money, it is more from I'm doing it out of more from my passion. The money comes later. So once you, again, my point is you need to build on some of the hard, identify in your own area, you identify the hard solutions and how you can address it. The money is just a byproduct of, solving that problem.
Thank you. So tell us, how are you going to build, let's say, a camel and not a unicorn in your own companies that you invested in?
First of all, the way I gathered, this is again from a camel perspective. This is an ugly solution in the sense not many people recognize even in that part of the world. I gathered all this kind of content and I already published about close to 11 books. Out of that one, and 2 of them are on business side. The remaining books are on the cultural perspective. I already published the Amazon, 11 Amazon bestsellers in this area. And I'm appearing in this kind of podcast, to promote that kind of stuff. That's one area. And as I mentioned, I gathered around a couple of thousand hours of content in that specific domain. And these contents are, again, some of them are with 11K 360-degree camera. I don't know, Titan 11K, the spatial camera, you may know about the Apple Vision Pro, gathered with that one, and the Nikon Z9. I'm sitting on a huge content, and I managed to take a tax write-off on with my other consulting, like the revenue generating. I built a huge repository of content. Again, these are not from the financial perspective, on a content building perspective. And these are everlasting content. Nobody can. It is hard to replicate that kind of content. So again, every entrepreneur a person has their own motive. Some people may be motivated by money. Again, my philosophy perspective, it is money is a byproduct. As long as yeah, the kind of content I'm building, the kind of relationship you're building, and that kind of opportunities are everlasting. Whatever we are recording, it's never going to go away. It will be always in the, it may take some time to people to recognize it, but once you build the foundation, once you build the camel, it is going to last for not just my generation. It is going to be dynastical. Even my grandkids, going to remember for that one.
Thank you. So tell us, what are the commandments of building a camel and not a unicorn in someone's company? Where would they start?
First, I think in my perspective, you need to follow the 10 commandments in this area. It's something which I came out with. So you need to be, thou shalt not you need to solve the human problem. The second issue is, you need to build a castle, not a sand castle. Look from that perspective, something, you go into generations to remember. Then you need to fire your hunters, the people, those who are with a short-term mentality, and you need to be a farmer. You need to cultivate your land. You need to cultivate your company. Then, it is going to, for generations to come, you're building it. And you need to chase, instead of chasing the fluff or the venture capitalist short-term minded people, you need to look for the patient capital. You need to find the partners. I understand it's not that easy, but you need to come out with the partner, you like-minded people. You need to come out building, you need to chase the patient capital. And you need to, rather than building, when you're building your team, rather than building all yes bosses, the people who all say, smiling at you and, agreeing with you, you need to build a team of enemies. You need to, enemies in the perspective, you need the people who don't agree with you. The only way you can learn from another person is, if he agree with you, you can't, you're not learning anything from him. You need to build the people who don't agree with you. You need to look for rather than the hype, you need to look for the impact. What impact you can bring to the society or to the company or whatever the solution you're building. And when you're building something, rather than looking for the next quarterly result, or rather than looking for an exit, typically again, many in this part of the world, many companies, they're looking for the opportunity to sell to the Googles or the Microsoft of the world, looking for the next exit. Rather than you need to look for, from a long-term, your next generation, the company going to last for next generation. And you need to look for, again, over here, I'm a Six Sigma Master Black Belt also. I'm in the supply chain industry for 25 years. Everything is after the efficiency over here, just in time. That was it. But you need to look for inefficiencies. You need to look for something which lasts for like the turbulences kind of environment, whether it is 2008 or the COVID supply chain crisis we had. So when we are building, you need to build inefficiencies. I mean to say resilience on the organization. And when you're pitching something, the proposal, you need to pitch it to rather than the preparing the pitch deck for the venture capital, the short-term money, you need to pitch for the patient capital from your grandmother. If your grandmother is investing, that shows you're building something makes sense. And you need to look for the next payout or a quarterly result exit. You need to look for your legacy, your history. You need to build some dynastical. That is a principle look at from when I try to build something. Yeah.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can connect with you.
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can do the search by Saji Madapat. Another opportunity, some of my right now many of my books are listed in the theyam.us, THEYYAM.us. They can always search me on LinkedIn, and they can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.